The last time I saw my friend alive, she was walking backward down a trail she'd hiked 100 times before. Not because she was being cute. Not because she was waving goodbye. She was watching the tree line. That should have been my first clue that something was wrong. But when you're standing in the cold October sunlight of the Mount Hood National Forest, and your hiking partner of 2 years tells you she'll see you at the junction by 4, you don't overthink the way she's gripping her walking stick. You don't question the tightness around her eyes. You just go. Her name was Mara, and she'd been doing this since she was 19. Backcountry trails. Solo week-long loops. The kind of woman who carried a satellite messenger not because she was afraid, but because she was responsible. We'd met through a climbing group in Portland, bonded over a mutual love for places where cell service doesn't exist, and logged maybe 200 miles together before that trip. She knew those woods. The way the fog settled into the valleys by noon. The particular silence that comes before rain. The difference between a downed elk and a campsite. What she didn't know, what none of us could have known, was that some silences aren't empty. They are listening. We split on the second morning. I wanted to drop down to a creek basin she'd shown me once, a place with volcanic rock pools and twisted old-growth junipers. She wanted to push north along the ridge, where the map showed a series of lookout points above the timberline. Radio check at 3, she said. Junction by 4. If you're late, I'm coming to find you. She smiled when she said it, but something hung in the air after. A hesitation. Then she turned, took 3 steps, and looked back over her shoulder. If anything feels wrong, she said quietly, don't wait. Just go. I thought she meant in general. A hiker's common sense. Trust your gut. I didn't understand until later that she was talking to herself. The creek basin was beautiful in that cold, in different way the Northwest does so well. Grey-green water. Moss hanging off everything like rotting velvet. I sat on a boulder for an hour, eating an apple, listening to the water move over stones. No one else for miles. Or so I thought. I remember noticing, somewhere in the back of my mind, that the birds had stopped. Not gradually. All at once. One moment there was the usual distant chatter of jays and thrushes. The next, nothing. I looked up from my apple. The forest had gone absolutely still. Something felt wrong. I couldn't explain it. There was no sound. No movement. Just that hollow, prickling sensation at the base of my skull. The one that says you are not alone in the way you thought you were. I stood up. Checked the ridge above me. Saw nothing but trees and shadow. I told myself it was nothing. Packed my things. Started walking back to the junction. I got there at 3:50. Mara wasn't there yet, which didn't bother me. I sat on a fallen log, drank water, watched a cloud the size of a city drift over the ridge. At 4:15, my radio crackled. Her voice was wrong. Not scared. Mara didn't do scared. But compressed. Like she was holding something down with great effort. I'm about a mile north. Pause. I need you to stay exactly where you are. Do not come looking for me. What's going on? A longer pause. When she spoke again, her voice was even quieter. There's something in the trees. She made it to the junction at 4:40, walking fast with her head on a swivel. She didn't stop when she saw me. Didn't slow down. Just grabbed my sleeve and pulled me west, toward the trail we'd come in on. Walk, she said. Don't run. But don't stop. We walked for an hour before she spoke again. By then we were back at camp, and she'd put her back to a boulder with a clear view of the woods in every direction. She told me she'd been on the ridge trail for maybe 2 hours when she saw it. Not the thing itself, just the effect of it. A patch of undergrowth moving against the wind. A shape that didn't match any animal she knew. Too tall. Too deliberate. She said she'd stopped to retie her boot, just to have an excuse to look downslope. Whatever was down there stopped too. Not wandered. Not sniffed the air. Stopped. As if it knew exactly why she'd paused. That's when I realized, she said, that it's not following me. It's keeping pace. She tried her radio. Dead zone. She tried walking faster. The movement in the trees matched her. She tried slowing down. So did it. For 45 minutes, she walked that ridge with something tracking her from below. Close enough that she could hear branches bending. Close enough that she caught a smell, like wet earth and something else. Something sweet in a wrong way. Like fruit rotting where you can't see it. She said the worst part wasn't the fear. It was the awareness. The certainty that whatever was down there knew exactly what it was doing. That it was choosing not to come closer. That it was waiting for something. She didn't know what. She didn't want to find out. When she finally got radio signal and heard my voice, she said she almost cried. But she didn't let herself. Because that was when she looked up and saw that the movement had shifted. It wasn't below her anymore. It was on the ridge above. Circling. We packed camp in 20 minutes. Left a tent pole behind. Didn't care. We drove to a ranger station in Zigzag, and Mara filed a report while I sat in the truck with the doors locked. The ranger, a woman in her 50s with a face that had seen things, listened without interrupting. Didn't ask if Mara had been drinking. Didn't suggest it was a bear or a cougar. Just wrote it all down in a leather-bound log and said, very quietly, "You did the right thing by leaving." Mara asked if there had been other reports. The ranger looked at the log. Then at Mara. Then at me. She said, "Enough." That was 3 years ago. Mara moved to Arizona last winter. We don't talk about Oregon. But sometimes, late at night, I pull up satellite images of that ridge trail. I zoom in on the sections where the trees are thickest. I look for clearings. For shapes. For anything that doesn't belong. I never find anything. But I keep looking. Because a few months ago, Mara sent me a screenshot. A news article from Washington, the Gifford Pinchot Forest. A hiker had disappeared from a ridge trail. No distress signal. No body. Just an abandoned pack and a pair of footprints that stopped in the middle of a clearing. The article quoted a Forest Service spokesperson who said, "We encourage hikers to remain on established trails and travel in groups whenever possible." It did not say what they thought happened to her. It did not say what they think is out there. But at the bottom of the page, buried in the comments, someone had written this: "My grandfather was a ranger in the 80s. He used to say there are places in those woods where the trees don't grow right, where the quiet is too heavy. He said the old maps had warnings on them that someone removed. He said the forest doesn't forget. And sometimes, it remembers to be hungry." I closed the laptop. I poured a glass of water. I sat in my kitchen and listened to the normal sounds of my neighborhood. Cars, dogs, a distant lawnmower, and tried to convince myself that I was safe. But that's the thing about wilderness, isn't it? You don't have to be in it for it to be in you. I still check my locks twice before bed. I still wake up at 3 a.m. sometimes, convinced I hear something moving just outside my window. I still go to the window, and I still look out at the street, and I still tell myself it's nothing. But every time, before I turn away, I find myself watching the tree line. Just in case. Just in case something out there is keeping pace.